Hey guys, it's me, Joe Campanale. I am extremely excited to be here today with Aldo Vacca of Produttori di Barbaresco. He is the general manager, the director, the fare tutto, which means he does everything. I just learned a Latin word this morning.
Factotum.
Factotum.
It sounds a little strange, but it means do everything.
Do everything. So he oversees all of the operations of probably my favorite co-op and one of my favorite producers in all of Italy, the Produttori di Barbaresco. Something that I'm always very curious about is, in general, many co-ops tend to be of not very high quality. How is it that you maintain the quality, and also can you just tell us a little bit about what it means to be a cooperative winery? Because I think this is something that people aren't as familiar with.
Well, it starts with the fact that traditionally the land ownership in most of the European wine regions, Barbaresco is no exception, tends to be very small. A lot of very, very small families owning little pieces of land, 4 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres at the most. So most of these families traditionally were not making their own wine because they didn't have enough land. They were selling grapes to larger wineries or negociants. And selling grapes up to the 50s or the 60s was not very remunerative. They were not making much money, so they were struggling to make a living. Of course, if you were in a famous area like Barolo, Bordeaux, maybe you were a little better off. Maybe you could start to make your own wine. But Barbaresco was a little bit under the radar until the 50s. So these farmers were not struggling to make a living, facing the option of selling their land and moving to the big cities where the industry was booming. In 1958, the local priest of Barbaresco pushed his parish or some of these families to actually stop selling grapes and making wine, which meant founding a cooperative, so working together. Each farmer owns his own land, is totally independent in the way he farms his land, but instead of making wine or selling grapes, at harvest time he delivers his grapes to the winery that was built in the center of the village, and the wine is made there by the winemaker, by myself, turned into good wine, put in the bottle, sold, and then at the end of the year, all the money that is in the bank goes back to the farmers. So the farmers are not selling grapes to the cooperatives. The farmers own the cooperative. They are shareholders. They are entitled to the profit of the selling of the wine. It's a common way to make wine in Europe. So you find cooperatives in all the European wine region, Bordeaux, Alsace, Tuscany, Piemonte. Usually cooperatives are known for simple, everyday wine, not to go too crazy about it. There are some exceptions though. Produttori has been in the one of the exceptions of this world of wine cooperative since the foundation, since 1958.
So what are some of the steps that you take to ensure that you make a high quality wine? Because I imagine when you have 52 different growers, you have 52 people who have an idea of what the wine should be like, and certainly some people are probably more talented than others, or they have better plots of land than other people. So how do you make such a great wine?
You're very careful with that, and the thing is that we've been very careful with that since the foundation, since the 50s, and that's what sets Produttori apart. Because these days now everybody has to make quality to survive. But back in the 50s, in the 60s, quality was not that much of an issue. So for a cooperative in those years was simpler to just make a lot of simple junk wine and make easy money. Produttori went the other way, quality direction. The number one decision that was taken since the beginning was to make only Barbaresco. So no Dolcetto, no Barbera, no Chardonnay, no white wine, only one grape. Stay focused to be good. So focusing on one grape only forced the farmers, the winery, to produce quality in order to survive. Then these farmers are obliged to deliver all their Nebbiolo grapes to the winery. They cannot make their own Barbaresco. They cannot compete with the winery itself. So it's kind of a 100% belonging rule that makes it very important for the winery. And finally, they get rewarded for or paid for their grapes according to the quality of the grapes. So the higher quality they deliver, quality based on sugar, phenolic, color, the higher quality, the more money per kilo, per pound. And this is something that has been done since the beginning, since the 50s, which kind of, again, built a quality mindset among the farmers. Then at the winery, once the grapes are delivered and evaluated, and we build this scoreboard for the payment, then we act as any other fine winery in the world. So we make all these selections. We make 9 single vineyards. So the best grapes from the best vineyards are kept separate to make the single vineyards. We make the Barbaresco basic wine. We make the young Nebbiolo based on lighter grapes or lighter fruit that is delivered. So all those decisions are taken at the winery in order to deliver in every single barrel the best possible quality. And that's now has been done for the last 50 years.
That's great. I was looking at, in our wine cellar, and we were showing a bottle of 1982 Produttori di Barbaresco from one of the single vineyards, the Rio Sordo vineyard. And I love it. Sometimes you'll release some older wine to us, and it was one thing that we really believe in is showcasing wines when they're ready to drink. And I find that a lot of times Barbaresco in its youth can be very tight and tannic, and it needs a little bit of time to open up. But can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of Barbaresco in the bottle when you have a very good quality wine that can age?
So no, Barbaresco is one of the great red wines of the world. It can age easily 20, even 30 years. Usually it's best after 6-7 years. So I will not touch a bottle of Barbaresco when it's at least 6-7 years old. Between 7 to 12 years is the phase when it goes from youth to maturity, so the flavor starts to open up. So at the very beginning the wine is tight, the tannins are a little strong, the fruit is there. You can judge the quality by the length of the wine on your palate and by the intensity of the nose, but it's not really open. But after 6-7 years it starts to open up, so the cherry aromas, the licorice, the violet, all this extreme intense combination of complexity starts to open up and really gives a lot of gratification on the nose and in the finish. The palate can always be a little shy in the first 12 years of life. Barbaresco is not really about the middle palate, it's more about the finish, the length of the wine, the aftertaste, as we say. And that's what it makes Barbaresco a beautiful full wine, because it lingers on the palate, the flavor. But Barbaresco, again, is never about heaviness, it's always about complexity and elegance. So it's a very complex wine, but always very elegant on the palate and very refined. After 12 years, when he enters a full maturity, then you get more of the licorice, more of the earthiness, the truffle, the mushroom aromas. It keeps on evolving and getting more earthy, and the tannin starts to get sweeter and sweeter. So now, when a young Barbaresco, 6 to 12 years old, is nice with any type of red meat, steak, veal bolognese, or pasta with nice mushroom sauce. As it gets older, 12, 15, 20 years older, then you want to go in the game, venison, or aged cheese, so that it can really go with your meal according to the different age, with different dishes, but it's an extremely flexible wine on the table because it's made to be a companion of the food and not to take the center stage of your dinner experience. It's always made to enhance the quality of the food.
And the one last thing I wanted to ask about is that I've always cherished your wines for how beautiful and elegant and nuanced they are. And when I was tasting through all of them, I happened to notice that, and I didn't notice this based on the palate because it was really elegant and pretty, but on the bottle of the 07 Barbaresco, we're at 14.5% alcohol. And that's usually something that I would associate that high of a level of alcohol with a producer who's going for more concentration, more modern style. When was the last time that you reached a level of 14.5% alcohol, and what's going on in the world that allowed that to happen?
In my memory, 07 is the first time we actually have to write 14.5 on the label. In the last 10, 15 years, it's much more common to make 14% alcohol wine. In the past, it was more like 13.5. For Barbaresco, for our region in general, it's not so bad because these wines are usually plenty of acidity and pretty strong tannins. So the 14 alcohol kind of blends in very nicely, makes the wine a little rounder, a little easier to appreciate in his first 10, 12 years of life. I remember the vintages from the 80s, from the 70s, they were really untouchable before 10 years because the tannins were more sharp, the acidity was stronger. Now the wine, global warming is making these wines a little riper, a little rounder. What made in the area, September now is by all means a summer month, drier and warmer than it was used to be in the past. And September is when the vintage takes shape. These grapes are picked at the end of September, beginning of October. So it's easier now to have ripe grapes. And and that turns in wine which are a little more enjoyable in their early years. And a little higher in alcohol, although again, as you said, on the palate you don't really notice that strong alcohol because the wine is balanced with the acidity and the tannin. But we are farmers, we are used to work with whatever the season gives us, so we don't complain, we don't try to manipulate. When the wine is 13 and a half, it's going to be 13 and a half, it is 14 and a half, it's going to be 14 and a half. It's not something we try to achieve. What we try to achieve is a balanced wine with color, tannin, sugar, and therefore alcohol in a balanced way. And then whatever nature gives us is what we're going to put in the bottle.
All right, well, thank you so much. That's Aldo Vacca here with Produttori di Barbaresco. Certainly one of my favorite estates in all of Italy, and still to this day the best quality cooperative winery in the world that I've ever tasted. So we're really honored to have you here and proud to serve your wines at all of our restaurants. Thanks so much, Joe Campanale.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you. Thanks.
We'll see you soon. Thanks.